Hello and welcome to the Path to Power podcast with me, Dominy Rowe. On this podcast, I talk to incredible men and women who have fought adversity and are turning their pain into power. I talk to people overcoming childhood trauma, abuse, and unhealthy relationships who now have brands, businesses, and are breaking the cycle to change their generational legacy. Hi, Penny. Welcome to the Pain to Power podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. This is a conversation that has been a long time coming. We have a lot of conversations anyway, but this particular one I'm really, really excited to have with you today. So Penny is an author, writer, blogger, coach, mentor, incredible speaker, and particularly on the issues around mental health, relationships, trauma, anxiety, all those kind of things that we're talking about here on the podcast. So welcome, Penny.
Thank you for having me. I've literally been looking forward to this so much. Like you said, we chat a lot, but it's nice to have some of our chat to look back on.
Exactly. And do you know what, babe? I forgot to say when we were saying hello, I actually wore this specially for you because me and Penny always do charity shop hauls. Penny's way better at doing them than I am. She posts them on her Instagram. But this was actually a very granny dress, you can probably tell. And I actually chopped it. And so now it's a top and it's got a matching skirt that I made. I thought you might be impressed.
I love it. And I love the colours. I was just thinking when we started, I was looking at your orange and your purple and I was like, I've never seen my background be black and white and someone else is colourful. Your colours are really making my eyes happy.
I hope they're making them happy and not like confused.
Or, no, you know I love a bit of colour.
Oh, that's what I think, babes. I love it. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's like silk and like you say, the colours are gorgeous, but the style of the dress was like a proper grandma dress. Anyway, so we changed that up. Anyway, Penny, yeah, so let's jump straight in. So we were just talking then actually before we press record about kind of for us as older women who are kind of really healing or looking at the journey of healing and in that space around our childhood trauma and the things that we've had to overcome. It'd be good just for you to share just a little bit about some of kind of your initial childhood traumas and really kind of where that's brought you to now as an adult in this space. Because we are adults, you know, as much as we don't act like it, we are adults.
We are. I know. When you said we're older women, I was like, we are young.
Did I say old women? I meant wise, darling. Women. Oh, older. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, I guess if I was to try and bullet point it, the first kind of traumatic experience I think I went through as a child is I lived in Birmingham. I was born in Birmingham, and my mum left my dad quite abruptly running away to London with someone else, and because so almost immediately, we were in London, like put into like hotels and hostels trying to be housed, and my mum's new boyfriend, they fought a lot, so a lot of physical fights, arguments, and with us living in like just a small space, it was all very visible. So I didn't quite know whether we had been kidnapped or not. So I was really young, but I remember having moments where I was wondering if this, bad guy was going to let us go. Like I didn't know, because I was for the short time that I was in Birmingham, I was a daddy's girl. So that was quite difficult, seeing my mum, growing up and with the domestic violence not easing up. That was I think those were some of my earliest memories of trauma, I guess. And cutting a bit further, that relationship continued, witnessing domestic violence throughout my whole childhood, and ultimately a lot of dysfunction. My mum died when I was 15 due to heroin. I'm saying a lot. I didn't think about this. So ended up in foster care at quite a late age. About a year after getting into foster care, met my first serious boyfriend, a year after meeting him, I ended up in my own abusive relationship, which lasted for 6 years until I was 21. And that was very violent, very traumatic. During the whole time, I didn't really grieve the loss of my mum because of the fact that I was in a situation where I felt like my life was at risk quite a lot. So, yeah, eating disorders, substance misuse, loads of oddness. And then got out of that, and I was no longer a child. So that's the childhood trauma.
You were the older woman.
I was the old 21-year-old. but yeah, and then it a lot of madness continued as a result of the childhood trauma. But yeah, those were the young years, and definitely had a strong negative impact on everything. If you consider that I was about 3 or 4 when my mum left my dad. So yeah, it started then.
And where I know, right? I know. And sometimes I when people ask me about mine, I kind of do a similar thing to you in that I bullet point it. And it's, you know, we've had to, I think, to a great extent, disattach from the emotion of it, you know, whilst there are times when we'll go into that and process that, and that's a big part of our healing. I think it's interesting, isn't it, when we talk about it, that it's, you know, because sometimes I think, well, when you say those kind of things, and when certainly I share my experiences, I'm like, I'm surprised I'm not like on the floor bawling. Do you know what I mean?
But I literally was like, what are these we better be able to edit them out, because like I'm trying to compose myself like
no, darling, we're not editing our flaws, because we're incredible the way we are. But and then so where would you say now, like, because, and I think this is such an important conversation, isn't it? And we started to get into it before we press record. We were like, quick, press record. But as you know, as women that have overcome significant childhood trauma, that have witnessed domestic violence, substance misuse, mental health issues, you know, all of it, the toxic relationships, the, you know, the just everything that an unhealthy relationship is. How do we learn to know what a healthy relationship looks like? And therefore, when we are entering into relationships, what's been your experience of that? Like into your, you know, the older woman, but
lady that I am. I'm not going to be able to be a bit of a pro in this answer, because I'm still learning. I am, I guess, trying for the first time to really embrace and understand that healthy relationships exist and they last, and it's not a too good to be true situation that I need to self-sabotage before I get hurt or abandoned. And that's the thing that I'm finding really interesting. I feel like up until more recently, I'm 34 now, and up until really recently, I kind of didn't pick, I feel quite bad even saying this, but I don't think I could even embark on a proper relationship, because I didn't understand myself. I felt like I trusted people, but it was really surface level. I didn't know what I wanted from a relationship. I was so scared of being a burden that I just gave so much and, you know, expected so little back. So whenever I'd feel emotional, I would almost run away from that situation, because then I'd feel like that person now has power over me and I'm the weak one and I need to just get out. And it weren't always a situation where that would happen. Things would come up and, you know, but I feel like I just had situations apart from, you know, my first ex, who ended up really abusive. And that was such a big portion of me trying, you know, through everything that I'd seen, this could have been the opportunity for me to restore my faith in men, in relationships, in love, but it was the complete opposite. It was a living hell. And so I didn't even take the time to try and unlearn that. I just saw when someone came along in my life that weren't abusive, that didn't try to control me, I saw them as healthy, and I just needed to try to distract myself and get over what I'd been through. I didn't know about the process of healing. I thought that because I didn't cry about things anymore, and because I weren't in a state of devastation and yearning inside like I was at one point, I felt like I was over certain situations and that I was free and potentially healed. So I would then quickly get into really close connections with other people that just weren't horrible to me, and see that as healthy, but also always check myself. And I was going through the side of, if they show any signs of trying to control me, they're toxic and I need to go. Or if I love them too much and I would miss them if they died, they need to go. So I was torn between being too scared to love because I was scared of losing someone I loved, like my mum, and I'd never, dealt with that. I also stayed with the horrible ex because with meeting him at the same time as losing my mum, and then, receiving affection from someone which I didn't have, and it mirroring what I had with my mum, getting all confused about what intimacy should be, and just relating and comparing any kind of intimate relationship to the one I had with my mum. I was just, you try and you say anything that makes me feel controlled, I'm out. And that could just be, hi, where are you? I'm like, why do you need to know where I am? Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a sign, that's a red flag. Or if I look at you and think, oh, I love you. Oh, no, because if you leave here and die, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to lose my mind. It's going to feel that. So I just was not, it was not going to happen. It was only surface level. And, I had to begin within, and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. Oh God, babe, I feel like I'm at that place too. Don't worry.
Finally deciding that I don't need to be with another person to feel whole, but also to be the one. I don't need to be the one that's just, given so much to feel like, I don't know, is it ego where I want to feel needed, but I don't want to need anyone?
I think there's some interesting stuff around attachment theory, which I'm sure you've come across, in terms of like those, the importance of our early attachments with our primary caregivers and what those relationships looked like. And then how our brains, it automatically, like our subconscious, is triggered when we're in a romantic situation, and it reflects back that we, of the feelings that we felt when we were young, so the needing to be needed would often be, I know when I've processed my own trauma and looked at, I have what's called an anxious attachment style. So probably the opposite to you, Penny, actually, in that I attach really, go on, sorry.
I was going to say, I think I identify with anxious attachment.
I think we possibly do go through
not real self, not the fake.
Sure, not the not that I'm independent.
I don't need you. I don't like you. Just
sure
out every day.
And actually, different other, like, different attachment styles in people that we might meet, like in men that we might meet, would trigger different attachment responses in us, right? But essentially my overriding is the anxious one, and with that comes this need to be needed. And so, similar to you, I ended up in a lot of codependent relationships where I would be trying to be the fixer of these men who I saw great potential in, but they never actually showed me that they saw it in themselves, or that actually they could back their words with actions. I just projected a view and a vision for them, which in my work life and in my friendships, etc., that is a beautiful strength and quality that I have, because I'm an empath. I can see the good in people and I can call it out. And it's, I see a lot of that in you, Penny, as well, obviously, in the work that you do. But in that, and with that comes this need to be needed, and as soon as that goes, that sense of rejection, abandonment, aloneness, that is so raw. And like you said, even for me as a 30, I'm 35, so I'm slightly older than you and wiser. No, I'm joking. But even at, you know, at my lovely wise age, these aren't feelings that have gone away. They're just feelings that are triggered, and I have to be able to recognize those triggers in a relationship and almost not react to the trigger, you know, like completely second guess what would be my innate reaction. And that is doing the work. Oh gosh, babes, listen, I'm still learning it. It's just that I've identified that that's what I would be doing if I was in a healthy relationship. But I think the point is also that in a healthy relationship, right, the other person is doing the same thing. So you are both doing the work. Certainly for me, and that, similar to you, you know, when you said sort of is a healthy relationship just like a far-fetched dream, or, you know, something that is really actually tangible, I often have the same fear, and it is a fear, you know, it's something I'm aware of, it's something that I have to actively affirm. I am worthy of a healthy relationship, and I will find that healthy relationship when God deems that to be the right time, you know. But I think that for me, that would look like somebody else that is also doing that work, that is also aware of their triggers, that knows, you know, when they feel a certain way, their behavior becomes a certain way, and that could be destructive. And so there's that communication to prevent that from happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah. A mature man.
A mature man. Yes, please. Yes, please, Lord. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, but like you said, like it is, you know, with all of this and in the healing journey, and, you know, you do a lot of work around wellness and self-care and self-love, these things, and you and I have said this before, like particularly when you're from a background where you've had to overcome the most significant traumas, you know, the abuse, the physical abuse, the witnessing of domestic violence, the sexual abuse, the unhealthy the toxic environment. When you've had to overcome that in any relationship, you're always coming from the bottom. Does that make sense? Like,
you operate from a point of rejection.
Almost. That's right. And so the work, you know, it's like the inner voice stuff. It's constant, isn't it? Because the battles in the mind, the voices that we're having to contend with, it's every day, every minute, every hour. So the work is going on all the time. You know, if we're in that
non-stop, like we were saying before, sorry, my cut-off game strong. Had you landed?
Yeah, go on. No, honey, I'm just as bad. So I'm literally, when you and I talk, because we are like that anyway, I'm always like, let me create space. Let me create space. But no, go on.
We were touching on it earlier, and about before we press record, when I was like, let's just press record, because we'll end up doing 2 podcasts here. But it's so easy to feel like we've overcome something, have a situation which arises, which makes us feel so healed, so free. Oh, look, I'm embracing love. Look at me, I'm so precious. And then we get triggered, or something happens that makes us feel like we've gone 39 steps back. We haven't healed a second in our life. And when we are going through that, we can be tempted, especially as us with this work that we do, we can be tempted to stop sharing so openly and stop being a voice for the thing that we're struggling with. Because I know for me, I always felt like I'd been through a lot that I had got over, aka turned absolutely numb to. So I really understood certain women. I really cared and loved certain women that I didn't even know, because I just saw exactly where they were coming from. I felt it. I you know, I related. But what I didn't realize is that I hadn't actually dealt with the thing that we had in common. I identified and felt empowered about how aware I was of it, but I hadn't gone to the root and dealt with it. So the reason I'm going around in explaining it like this is because I went through a time where I was blogging every week. I was writing a blog post a week. You know, a little bit more about my adult life is at 30, as you know, I got diagnosed with severe ADHD. And then a year later, CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is understandable. And I just started, I had wanted as a writer to write books that help people, like Joyce Meyer. She'd been through a lot and she wrote books that helped to empower people. But I always knew that I would only have the authority, so to speak, spiritually and professionally, to do that when I was free from those things, because you can't set someone free if you're still bound. That's how I felt. Right. And I feel like I'm deviating away from that belief at the moment, because whilst I was blogging for a year, like writing a blog post a month or a week, really regularly, sharing everything I was learning about my mental health, which I was only just becoming aware of, I stopped when I went into a dark place. It was at the point when I'd got diagnosed with CPTSD. I couldn't manage my ADHD anymore. All this amazing stuff I'd learned about managing it without medication, which was working and my triggers were lessening, went out the window. And I went into a season where I felt like, how can I write? How can I help people? How can I tell people how to be free when I'm not practicing none of it? I don't want to practice none of it. I am sticking all the fingers up at it like this. I am just like, I don't want to do none of it, even though I know it all works. How can I dare to, you know? And then other things happened and I felt just so unempowered and you know, I forgot this actually until I'm telling you, but I forgot. I felt like I didn't have a place to help. And what I'm just, as I'm going through and relearning and reparenting and really feeling to heal at the moment, feeling things that I've been feeling emotions lately that I have never felt since I was 7 years old. Yeah. And it's, you know, real feelings. And I guess they're probably normal feelings that some people probably feel every now and again, cry it out and keep it moving. I have refused to let any kind of emotion this intense come up. It's a trauma response. It's a block. And
survival, isn't it? It's survival. Our brain does it without our permission, but it goes into survival.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to step into a place at the moment, which I haven't actually, I guess I do little posts like, hey, to anyone feeling like, blah, blah, blah. And really I'm talking about myself.
Ourselves, always.
Anyone that resonates, I hope that it helps them too. But I think I'm about to start being a little bit more open about what I'm navigating my way through currently, because I think it is so important. It's so important to let people know that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. And you can, you know, every part of your life and your character and your emotional, you know, well-being that improves, it is always an improvement. Even if you feel like you've gone backwards, sometimes you have to go back and pick up other little bits that are attached. It doesn't mean that the whole year you spent hiding in your cave with nothing but water and a journal, it doesn't mean that that wasn't impactful and important. It just means that there are layers to it. And if you're finding that you feel like you're going backwards all the time, it's because you could be on a very, you know, a very blessed, rapid healing path.
Absolutely.
You know, a very blessed path of rapid healing. Sorry, my English.
But you said that to me, Penny, not too long ago when I was in a situation, and I remember saying to you, babe, I thought this demon had been dealt with. Like I thought that, you know, and it was in a relationship context. And I remember you saying, honey, this is a rapid healing bit of it.
Like,
you know,
so intense.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's why a lot of the time we find, not just as women, but as people, that something will come into our life that we wish we avoided, whether it be someone asking us to go on a night out, a person coming into our life and we get into a new relationship, or something that we feel like we shouldn't really do, but we want to do. And it's up to us if, you know, if it feels uncomfortable, if it makes us feel vulnerable, if it makes us feel weak, backward, like we're going backwards, like we're not who we thought we were, it's up to us to identify that sometimes these things come to help refine us.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, we pray for, you know, Lord, heal me, Lord, please help me be healed. I mean, you know, I did have a mindset of feeling like that. You know, when the Lord felt good and ready, he'd go, okay, healed, you know. And I don't mean to even, I feel uncomfortable even imitating, but I did feel like, you know, at one point when I'm well behaved and ready, the Lord will just heal me and I'll wake up better. But what happened is difficult situations came up. People were allowed to be led into my life, and I was allowed to make decisions that weren't the best, because these, as Romans 8:28 says, the Lord will turn all bad things around for the good of those that love him and are called to his purpose. So it was, you know, the Lord doesn't send these bad situations, but if we're making bad choices based on trauma and based on our need for love, then these will be the exact, if we allow, the exact situations that will be used to refine us, if we choose to let them. So that's the silver lining of everything. And it's not like, oh, so that person treated me like absolute muck from a bum, and I should just see it as, oh, it's going to be turned around for the good. Feel what you're feeling, experience what you're feeling, honor your trauma, your pain and everything. Yeah, do that. But yeah, it can always, you know, some things aren't our decision, but everything can be used for our development.
The good. Absolutely. I you know how much I love my Kira London, Penny, innit? My trainer.
I do.
I know you do. I know you're in this. Are you in the squad? I remember when I saw you in the squad. Hey, good girl.
I walk around with weights sometimes just for fun.
Oh, I bet you do, darling. Yeah, barbell. Do the squats. But I actually shared something earlier because I'm doing like an online health and wellbeing fitness kind of course, because I've really got into like my exercise and my fitness over the last couple of years. It's definitely been for me a real coping mechanism, you know, around my healing. And I think it's helped me to channel some of my like ADHD energy as well, and just my mad behaviors. But what the post was talking about is the idea of progression. So within like the health and fitness industry, there's a term called progressive overload, right? And it's the idea that you build up more weight and your muscles as a result become more defined because there's progressive overloading on you. Does that make sense? So whether it's weights, whether it's additional time that you're training for, whether it's like you're training more regularly, the point is that you're overloading your body. You're putting you're putting progressions in comparison to what you had been doing. And the idea is that you become more defined. I don't know why I'm going like this, like my arms have got some kind of like definition, babes, because but the point is that it's in that process and that overloading that we become more defined. And I always think of that analogy of the diamond, you know, it's as go on. It's just
I was gonna say that when we were talking before and I was speaking about the situations that come along, I was literally going to say the same way it's fire that refines a diamond. It's pressure. You have to see where the fire pops up for us to be refined and not burnt.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were talking a minute ago, hun, you touched on the idea of like, you know, bringing up the roots from the past and healing the roots. How would you say in scenarios where you where you're definitely in a better place with it, you know, okay, let's put relationships to one side. We're still working through that. But in the areas where, you know, okay, with my mental health, I can manage that far better now than I could before. I have far more structure, or et cetera, et cetera. What would you say have been some of the tools, the strategies that you've used to dig up those roots and to do the work, as they say? Like for you, what has been that?
Consecration first. So separating myself.
That's a very intense word. What does that mean?
I was just giving a definition.
Oh, sorry.
No, so like to consecrate yourself, like to hide away, basically. So I was deliberate about cutting down on the social activities that I took part in. I literally got signed off sick from work and begun then I just hibernated, basically. And in that time I journaled a lot. I wrote letters to people that I had emotional ties to. I didn't send these letters and they were never going to be sent. But I just had to cry. I had to, which I didn't do. Even small things like, you know, things that made me feel a small bit rejected, but had a massive impact on me. And the amount of effort I had to put into blocking that feeling of rejection, that was something that I had to really cry out. I also spent a lot of time painting. And the reason I did that was because I have a very hyper mind at times, which can mean that even just wanting to journal, wanting to listen to, meditative music or soaking music where I could just process my thoughts, that can't always happen for me. I can't.
And the reason I'm smiling is because, you know what, today while I was exercising, I thought the exact same thing. Because I was talking to someone the other day and I thought just the way my energy is set up, like that is how I would describe it. Like I can spend a level of time in those zones and meditating, and meditation for me is a daily practice, but any more than 10 minutes, no, you know, the mind wanders anyway, as we know, but I've had to come to accept that, you know, for me, actually, the exercise, the intensity, like for my body, that actually helps me to channel my energy more effectively and positively than it would if you were to try and make me sit down for an hour and listen to some music. Do you know what I mean? Not that I don't enjoy other things,
but that's exactly what I had to do. I had to just be open and not have any other, you know, and obviously we've got jobs, we've got families and stuff, but even if where I had to kind of hibernate and go deep, you could have an hour a morning or an hour at night where you're just free, but your goal is to you've got your healing on your mind, you know. So during this acknowledgement and knowing that I wanted to, you know, seek God deeper and get and really access the freedom that I know is available to me, that I am playing a huge part in blocking. So on the times I'd feel hyper, I'd put on music, I'd sing my heart out. I'd really, you know, I'd relate all the lyrics to, you know, if it's a song, a love song, I would sing it to the Lord and just get that energy out and just feel love. I would, like I said, at times when I was in a meditative place, but I couldn't just sit still and chill. I would do other things that helped me to meditate, like paint, cook, clean. These were things at that time. I can't say cleaning is at the top of my list right now, but these were the things that it would help me. I'd put on like I said, I'd put on, it's really funny actually, I'm just going to be real, I'd put on pregnancy music. So there's this CD I got in Sainsbury's once, and it was called Pregnancy. I don't know what made me buy it.
I was thinking the same thing.
I was probably about 18 when I bought it as well. No intention of having a baby at any point that I've listened to it. At that time, obviously, I am going to be a mum, but I didn't then. And I just know what made me buy it. It's £3. There's also a woman on the front with a pregnant belly. But when I tell you this CD, the music, the most healing thing I think I've ever heard. It was the first time I cried my heart out in about 3 years. When I first heard that, I was 18. My mum had passed when I was 15. I hadn't cried properly. Put that on one day just to chill out. Didn't even know what to expect. And, you know, so I now know through being blessed by finding that CD is that those kind of tones and that kind of music helps me to meditate. But sometimes if I can't sit still, I need to have, you know, another activity that's calming for me on the go. And what I'd find is in painting, I'd be sitting there, all the twinkles going with the tunes, and you can listen to just nice tunes that, you know, make you feel relaxed. I was about to say upbeat.
I'm definitely going to try the pregnancy ones, because
I'll send you, because I found it on iTunes now. I'll send it to you. And what would happen, like literally, and it felt almost supernatural at the time, because I'm like, is I would just sit there and all of a sudden I would get a memory from my childhood that hurt, that I'd blocked out or forgotten about, and understand why that's related to something I do now, just out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere. And then I would just reassure myself inside, like, oh, that's not gonna happen. That was not, you know, just and it can happen as quick as that. But then also it could be a process that, you know, but this is what I had to do. I had to strip away the distractions and the coping mechanisms, the numbing, the whatever I was using to numb myself, and really find things that help me be myself, tap into myself, and that helped me get down.
Why do you think that's so hard, babe? Because I feel like for a long time, I knew the things that I should have been doing. Like, I knew that I should have been journaling, I should have been meditating, I should have been doing my affirmations. I knew the things that would make me feel better if I did them. But what is it, do you think, within ourselves that stops us from doing that? Like, why do so many of us either wait so long, or we know what we should be doing, but instead we choose to watch Netflix or to you know, text a guy, or the sabotage.
Sabotage is real. One, a lot of us have schedules where we can only give ourselves time at night, and a lot of the time our mood drops at night and we don't have the energy to do that. So we then need to just zone out on things like, you know, Netflix and TV, and just sit and doing nothing, because we get, you know, a lot of us have a natural energy drop at a certain time. Mine's about 4:35 p.m. and it's not like I just all of a sudden, but I have to be very mindful about what I eat after that time, what I engage in, and what pressure I put on myself. If I could try and get all my important stuff, my interactions done before 4 o'clock, I'm not going to feel like a failure when I can't get because my mood and my energy drops. I have come downs because of my own energy, and a lot of people do, especially if you have a lot of energy, or you're doing a lot of, you know, you're on technology a lot, or you're active throughout the day, so you feel like until I go to sleep I'm going to be productive, Penny. And no, because at a certain point you just drop. And if you don't identify that and cater to yourself and learn to love on yourself during that time, and give your, you know, begin then, you're going to start feeling rubbish, and then it's just going to be a cycle. So you just have to understand where you're at. Like I said, self-sabotage is real, and that's a whole different conversation, but it is wild. If anyone's listening and doesn't actually know how serious self-sabotage is, not as a little action, but as an actual psychological disorder. Self-sabotage is a mindset that, look it up, because
I was going to touch on the mindset stuff, because, you know, you've been doing a lot, and I think you're now a coach, aren't you, with Kaigo, the platform that you're involved in, but the wellness platform. And I've engaged in some of the content on there, and it's incredible. But specifically sort of looking and talking about these patterns that we can get into of, you know, where we're not aware of our mindset, where we're not actually catching our thoughts at every minute, and challenging them and saying, well, actually, is that thought serving me? Is that serving the version of myself that I want to become? Or is that an old subconscious trauma-informed thought that I need to actually do some work on? I would say that for me, and, you know, it's linked to self-sabotage, but for me, that's probably been the biggest piece of work. You know, there's been lots at different points in the journey, but that one, and that for me is so ongoing, you know, so ongoing, like that inner critic voice, the thing that, you know, where the fear is, you can't do that, who do you think you are, the imposter syndrome, you know, all of that. It's mindset as well, isn't it? It's the, and this is what goes back to what I was saying earlier, that, you know, we have to recognize that when we've overcome this childhood trauma, or we're overcoming, we are constantly having to be alert to those thought patterns and those sabotaging behaviors that otherwise is subconsciously will destroy us, because we won't be intentional to fight back.
Exactly.
Mic drop. I will say that it is obviously, we could chat forever, and we're going to do lots more stuff together anyway, Penny, aren't we? But it would be good to bring this conversation to a close. Is there anything that you would add in terms of kind of you know, anything that's made along the way been just a real instigator for your own development and your own healing, and just really, I guess, any wise words, anything that you would share to encourage that in others, anyone listening who might not even recognize that there's a journey of healing needed, but they know that they're in a bit of a pattern. Maybe they keep entering into these relationships which are toxic and seeing these similar behaviors. What would you say?
I would say, as petrifying as it can feel, when you're used to, distracting yourself with anything, and, I guess I think it's one of the good things that, if we're able to, that we can get from things like a lockdown, is being comfortable with yourself and by yourself. Because when you are when you are trying to be there for people, trying to feel needed by people, you just push all your needs aside. And it is great to be of help. It is great to want to pull the best out of people, but your cup will run dry if you don't constantly fill it up. So I would say be comfortable by yourself, and be, if you do know that you are in and around a lot of toxic relationships for different reasons, just have a break, have some time away from them. And affirmations, as you know, I love an affirmation. And what I would encourage is, if there are areas in your life that you feel you are kind of covering up, or that these distractions are feeding. So for instance, if you have insecurities, if you feel like you're not, your self-worth is low, or you feel like you're not important unless you're successful, or you feel invaluable unless you're, doing everything for everyone else, then or any insecurity you have, or anything that's holding you back from seeing yourself in a bright light, then find some affirmations that can support them and write them down and speak them over yourself at least once a day. So some favorites of mine that have helped so much is: I am healed, I am whole, not everything I think is real, I am better than I think, I am loved, I am lovable, I am valuable, I am
worthy, I'm enough.
I am worthy, I am enough. And just having a list that, even if you don't believe them, you want to believe them, and you do kind of hear people say that it's true about you, but you haven't experienced it on the inside. And just get into a habit of being careful how you speak about yourself, and going out of your way to speak to yourself in an edifying way, in a way that you would someone else that is feeling less than. And like one of those affirmations said and stated, not everything you think is real. Not everyone you think hates you and judges you does. Not every situation that arises or opportunity comes up that you think you're going to be crap at. No, that's not always true. So bear that in mind when you're overthinking, or when intrusive thoughts tell you a negative thing, that tell you that, anything around can't, or anything negative that makes you feel heavy. If a thought makes you feel heavy, identify that it could be fake, it could be a lie, you could be wrong, and move on. Leave it. Because if you are right, you can't control it anyway. And if you're not, then free yourself from it. Because that's where the heavy thoughts make us low. So, amazing. And that's the wise word I got from Uzo.
That is wise, girl. That is wise.
I'd quote him. But so when you're thinking light thoughts, you feel high, and when you're thinking heavy thoughts, you feel low. Gravity. So
it's so good. Every time I talk to you, I'm like, oh, there's so much more. There's so much more to talk about. And I know that you're going to be doing an Insta Live series on your page regularly. And so if people want to get more of this amazing content and this insight, and you are an incredible inspiration, Penny, and the more that you share, the more vulnerable, and whenever I've spoken to you, you have always been incredibly vulnerable and authentic in whatever the place is that you're in at that moment. And I just love that about you, and I'm proud of you, and I honor you for being that person to me as well. And just you're incredible. So where can people find you? Where can we engage with your work and see what you're doing?
If you, at the moment, I'd say, to keep it simple, come over to my Instagram page, where I have links and directions to everything. I have got a new online community called The Orange Room, which is on a community called Kaigo. And it's just a wellness platform, as you said earlier, full of people that are pouring goodness out. And it's like,
it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. And Penny shares incredible content every day. So you're doing a series on journaling at the moment. You've been doing some cooking, you're looking at doing the art stuff and inner child work and really practical tools for people. So it's an incredible like tool that people can access, isn't it? Yeah. Amazing.
My Instagram has all the links, and my Instagram's Penny Belle. So PennyBelle.
Yeah, and we'll put that in the description for the podcast and in the description for the YouTube as well. Love you, Penny.
Thank you. Love you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Path to Power podcast. To join our community, you can contact me on Instagram at LoveDominy, subscribe to the podcast, and get in touch. You can also find out more about my emotional health and wellbeing coaching and programs via my website, www.dominyrowe.com.